Welcome, everyone. I think we're going to get started. We appreciate your patience. My name is Rachel Adams. I am the Chief Curator and Director of Programs at the Bemis Center, located in Omaha, Nebraska. Thank you all for being here with us tonight for our Spring 2021 Residency Art Talks. Normally we do these in person, but of course, since we are doing a virtual residency right now, we're doing this virtually, and we're really excited to have so many people joining us tonight and to have our residents who are scattered across the globe with us as well. So thank you all. If you are interested in learning more about Bemis, you can visit our website. Holly is going to be our chat monitor tonight, so she'll be chatting in lots of links for you to follow in case you're interested in learning more about the artists. They're each going to give quick talks. These are about 5 minutes each. We'll have an intermission about halfway through. So there'll be a chance to stretch and take a bio break if you want. We'll also talk a little bit more about our programs at that point. So currently, just a little bit of housekeeping on view at Bemis. If you're in the area, we do have 3 solo exhibitions. One by Paul Mapagi-Sepoya, one by Maria Anselman, and one by Joey Farso. Those are on view until April 24th. So like I said, if you're in the area or near the area, you can schedule your visit to come see those in person. If you're not, we've done art talks with all 3 of those artists. You can check those out on our Vimeo page if you're interested in learning more, and obviously see more installation shots on our website as well. Next week, I believe, 2 weeks from now, March 11th, we will be having a virtual performance with Princess, which is actually a duo that we've worked with before. So we're really excited to welcome them back to the virtual space, and I'll be doing a Q&A with them afterwards. And then on March 4th, which is a week from today, we'll have a discussion with Sylvie Fortin and a few artists who she's worked with. And she'll talk a little bit about that during her art talk herself, but that'll be on March 4th. And you can find out more information on our website, and Holly will chat in the information for that as well. So I think with that, we'll probably get started with our first artist. So as I mentioned, everyone will present for around 5 minutes, and then there'll be a break halfway through, and then we'll continue with the rest of the artists. And we hope that you enjoy this. So thank you so much for joining us.
Hello. Hi. Hi, everybody. My name is Rehab El Sadek, and I'm an Egyptian artist who lives in Austin, Texas. And I moved to the US 2006. I live, my work is, I'm working in the intersection between conceptual art, architecture, and social practice. My work explores issues related to immigration, displacement, and identity. Thank you for everybody for being here. I'm excited to share some work with you tonight. This is a view of Cairo, where I am my largest influence, and the rich history of my native Egypt and ancient civilizations is my main, influence. I often borrow colors and textures and material from antiquity. Lately, I also found huge interest. I'm very interested in putting literature in my work. This work is an early work that I would love to share with you. It's my first attempt of installation art. And participatory art. This work was in 1997, and I'm sharing it today because this work is still influencing a lot of my work the processes, the research I started. This work is school benches. It's called Untitled School Benches. It has a lot to do with, I was trying to talk about a failing system that I'm, as a product of public schools, I came across, this as a challenge, and I wanted people to know more about what we have suffered somehow. And this is, I use methodology from ancient Egypt, mummifying and everything. This is an example of book sculptures, which is an ongoing form of my practice. Usually the books are unreadable. They are more this particular one is coming from a diary series treating personal history as unreadable, and this is a detail of a book of diacritics, which means in Arabic, Kitab al-Tashkil means the book that has no words. All the words are moved out, and it's just like the vowels, the Arabic vowels are left because it's a mystery of its own. And also we can say the knowledge here becomes an object. My typical, this work during the time of, a time that Egypt, as my native, Egypt has been really distant from me. It weighed heavily. I created the Memory Palace, a body of work in which I illuminated architectural drawings of demolished buildings and sacred buildings that I really had personal, it had personal meanings to me. I was utilizing light and shadow to stage a dynamic reconstruction of fading past as its subject of emotions, fluctuation, oh my English, and alternations of memory. As Egypt of my childhood disappears, what is remembered, what is forgotten. Next slide, please. So as you see in this piece, the viewer goes between, the wall, the etched fabric is between plexiglass, and it's illuminated by light. And then the viewer is sandwiched between this world of, a fantasy place that's coming from different layers of history, personal history and racial history. And
sorry, I think we might be having some technical difficulties.
Yeah.
Could you talk about the material that you're using in this piece?
The material and between plexi is fabric, silk fabric, and it's etched through, so you can see details. In the next slide, we're going to be seeing a detail that is the light hits from the other side, where the other side of the piece, it comes to the wall. The wall so takes all the reflection, so it extends the volume of the work and also the aspect. So when you go between the work, you feel that you are transformed to a different dimension, like a different city or a different place. Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that, everyone. I think that we just are having a little bit of an issue, but we're going to get back up and running in just a moment, hopefully. Just for everyone that's joining us, I can kind of give a little more information about the Bemis Center. We're actually celebrating our 40th year this year. So our residency has been going on for 40 years now. And because of COVID, we are doing this virtual residency for the spring of 2021. But we are very excited to welcome all of the artists back in spring of 2022. So they'll all be coming to Omaha next January and be here in person. So again, if anyone is tuning in from the area, you will be able to meet everyone in person next spring when they're here at Bemis. I'm sorry about our technical difficulties. Hopefully we will get that all figured out soon. Okay, thanks, Jonathan. Please, everyone, just hold on 1 minute. You can take your stretch break now if it's necessary. Okay. Okay. Rehab, I'm so sorry about this.
No problem, no problem.
Okay, Jonathan, I'm going to take you up on your off. Oh, wait, Nick is reconnecting. So hold on 1 second. Let's see if that works. And if not, we can reformat things a little bit. Okay, is everyone seeing that now? I think we're coming back to it. So again, sorry for that. And I'm going to mute myself.
Oh, yeah, perfect. Okay. So this one is a detail of the previous work, the Memory Palace. That's how, so I look at images, I remember like things, and I do, I do the detail. And then because it's a huge piece, so I took piece by piece. So this is how can you see the inspiration from the original. So here, my typical process requires that I do my own fabrication, employing centuries-old technique, memory mnemonic technique called the Memory Palace. I'm using this technique in order, I create an imagined location in my mind to store mnemonic images. Once I have those images, these mental spaces created, I give them a physical sculpture form. Then the final step is illuminating the objects to extend their aspect and create an interior space using shadow and light. I use shadow and light in a way compelling the viewer not only to engage with the art, but also to see, to watch themselves engage with the art. Shadows embody the theme of my work, the shifting, unclear nature of memories, the distant third-person quality of peering into yourself through the lens of time. For instance, looking at from a knitted pyramid structure to a shadow, you wonder which one is the real art and which one is, the true art. Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Stephanie Germosen. And first off, I just wanted to say what an honor it is to be part of such an amazing cohort. I'm extremely grateful to have this opportunity with Bemis, and thank you to everyone that's joining right now. We can move on to the next slide. So I like to start off with sort of the backbone of my practice, which are small and large format photographs I've taken of spaces that my family and I have occupied. They serve sort of as a recounting of the many journeys between Colombia, the Dominican Republic, and the United States. Making for me has sort of come out of that necessity to recreate these environments as tools to narrate them. Using these spaces and the objects within them as well as inspiration, I've created work that I call skins of experience, or piel de experiencia in Spanish. The name refers to the extremely tactile materials I use to communicate the urgency of remembering in conditions of displacement. So materials like latex rubber, urethane, vinyl, even vegan leather, which I'm working with right now. Things that can easily be folded and packed away. Some of the objects I use have been passed down to me, like an old column, a leaf of a dining table, postcards, photographs of past family members, among other things, have sort of become this archive that I pick from now. I've had these things that hang around for years and years until it's the right time for them to sort of make an appearance in my work. And it's because they hold so much information. I want to use them with as much tenderness as I possibly can. This work specifically is of a table leaf that I saved before it was thrown out. It has a faint iron mark, a yellow brick with Vladimir embedded into it, and a photo. Vladimir is a blue stone, a blue pectolite stone found in the Dominican Republic, and it's placed inside the yellow brick, which is the color of the rich soil used to build homes. It's dedicated to all the women in my life that I've grown up seeing wear Vladimir through different fashions of jewelry, but more specifically my mother. So these objects are transformed into almost souvenirs that recall the experiences of my Latin American identity. They each hold their own effective history. The photos I've taken, developed, collected over the years, and the objects as well. They hold simple yet concrete moments, like sitting in my grandmother's backyard, watching her water her plants, sharing meals with strangers I'd later find out were my second cousins, watching a house be built out of built from the dirt, and stories that return to me as I'm making. So by shifting that emphasis from the material to the immaterial, I repurpose objects of their origin, giving disembodied memories physical form while retaining their connection to my own notions of home. So a lot of my later works come from a kind of frustration for where I was geographically at the time, and wanting so badly to be somewhere in any capacity that reminded me of those spaces that I had grown up walking barefoot in the black and white ceramic tile. So I was thinking a lot about my own proximity to the things I was making, and living so closely and spending so much time with these almost relic-like things had given me an extra sense of responsibility to preserve them, and in doing so, preserving the memories that came within them. So each of them sort of serve as vessels that represent larger stories. And I am currently working on understanding the exchange between of language between these two identities. Code switching has been a big part of my life in regards to navigating Spanish and those narratives within the objects. So having a middle ground where my interest in language and object can coincide is my ultimate goal right now. Thank you.
Hey everyone, thanks for sharing. And I'm also super stoked to be here with such a talented group of people. And yeah, virtually super excited to be sharing space and time with all of y'all. So thank you. My name is Jonathan Herrera Soto. I use he, him, his pronouns, and I'm currently a visitor on ancestral Narragansett land, also known as Providence, Rhode Island. I'm a printmaker and use the medium of printmaking as a form of inquiry to talk about trauma and violence from the perspective of a witness. And we can start we can go to the next slide. I usually, when I talk a little bit about myself, I start with this image because I think it encapsulates a lot of my lived experience. I'm the little guy down in the red with the missing front teeth. And yeah, I usually show this picture and mention that almost everyone in the picture is undocumented except me and the younger generation of kids. And my upbringing kind of has molded my experience as a witness, proximate to an experience, not necessarily my own. And in my artwork, I've taken up that lens, is looking onto the world and translating what I see as an artist and as a listener. Most of my artwork, including these two images that use printmaking as an experimental method, using process as a form of ceremony and remembering, particularly highlighting the materiality of process and using important things like, to me, like the signifier and index of a human being, which is the fingerprint, which is like used to remember and documenting and a method to document missing bodies. But simultaneously, that gesture dehumanizes the human to data. A lot of my work looks onto the world, and this is an example that I think encapsulates that. This exhibition is entitled In Between Underneath, where I printed on the floor of the Minneapolis Institute of Art the portraits of 200 missing and murdered Mexican journalists. And I used the journalist as signifier for the erasure of the truth, and and I'm interested in how the materiality of printmaking can echo that erasure. At the end of the exhibition, I myself erased the remainder of what was left of the portraits of the journalists using using the gesture of mopping, this mundane, everyday activity. And I think this is also how I go about my practice, is using bits and pieces of what I make to give fertile soil to other things, like the portraits on the floor and that exhibition giving the opportunity and the fertile soil for the performance piece to erase them. This is another example of that, where this work is called the Love Poem Series, where I document my travels as an artist in these daily drawings, and it's my attempt to kind of have a sense of space and time, and it encapsulates the way that I think about fragments in my work and how everything feeds into each other. Because a lot of my conceptual priorities kind of, I can go back into this Love Poem Series and tap into, because everything is art and everything feeds into each other. And this year I started to work on this series all at once, which kind of returns to this like interest I have in palettes, because they are a signifier to me of an object condemned to perpetual transit, something made out of bare economy for the most amount of profit. And they are rendered disposable, and they're thrown away once no longer of use or service. And I've been using palettes as stand-in and signifier for the political body, the migrant body, and kind of like revisiting memories of loss and trauma within myself. I think COVID has really given me the time to be self-reflective, and instead of looking onto the world, kind of really looking into myself. And being a resident with this amazing cohort and at Bemis has also given me the opportunity to have a new studio space. And it's really the first time that I've been so tender and open about who I am, and also where my heart would like to guide me as an artist. And this is a picture I literally took yesterday of my studio. There's things that are really illegible as trauma and as violence is illegible. And I think I'm rewriting a visual language from scratch. And I have the Bemis Residency to thank to help me with the initial tools to get started in that work of deconstructing what I thought I knew and really like focus on what is to come. And I kind of find myself at the moment in a little bit of in between, but I think that's super exciting. And yeah, and that's where I'm at right now. Thank you. It's a big tarp. I work sometimes in facilities, and this is like a decade-old tarp, and it's also a big print because of all the markings and wounds that have been inflicted on it. And I get the gift of being able to pull significance from that. Yeah, I realized that I didn't say what it was.
Thank you, Jonathan. For some reason, our screen sharing is just not liking us tonight for whatever reason it is. So thanks for sharing that. We're just gonna wait a minute again. So in continuing the rest of the night, prior to that, we're just going to talk a little bit about a little bit more about Bemis. So if you don't know, Bemis is a residency that we have a couple of different sessions every year, 2 3-month sessions. So right now we're in spring, we have a summer one, and then a fall one, which is 2 months long. All the artists are given pretty big studios, which I am in right now, as you can see behind me in the dark. Live work space that has a full kitchen and bathroom and studio space to use and spread out. We pay everyone be here, as well as pay them a travel stipend. We actually have our open calls up right now. So if there's any artists in the audience that are interested in applying, we will be doing that for looking for next year, 2022. So looks like we are back, and I am going to mute myself again. But again, thanks everyone for your patience. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I'm Molly Joyce, composer and performer, and to start, I'm going to provide a visual description of myself. I'm a white, light-skinned female with blue eyes and short brown hair. Today, I'm wearing a dark navy blue long sleeve shirt, and I am in a room with light brown walls behind me and my red and gold vintage toy organ to the left of me. And to start out, I just want to say how really incredibly grateful, as everyone's saying as well, to be in this amazing cohort, and also so excited to kind of continue this dialogue and conversations next year in person in Omaha too. So if we could go to the next slide. All of my work focuses on disability as a creative source. In this photo here, I have myself at 8 years old, sitting in a brown wooden chair with a splint on my scarred left hand/arm, which is attached to a cello bow. And I'm holding a brown cello between my legs with my right hand up on the cello fingerboard. So at the age of 7, I was involved in a car accident which nearly amputated my left hand. And before the accident, I was involved in music a little bit. And following the accident, I grew to instruments such as cello and trumpet, but eventually found this instrument pictured here, which is my brown vintage toy organ with gold decal, with chord buttons on the left-hand side and a keyboard part on the right-hand side. The organ is placed on sand with green plants around it and a turquoise wall behind it. And this photo is by Monica McGivern. So I love this instrument so much because it has, with those chord buttons on the left-hand side and the keyboard part on the right-hand side, feels very natural for me to perform on with my body. And in this photo, I have a black and white image of myself performing on the toy organ. The image is taken from my right side and shows my right hand on the keyboard and left hand on the chord buttons. I'm wearing a black shirt with black leggings, and there are iPhone headphones in my ears. This photo is a pyramid kif. So I feel that this instrument really allows me to kind of cultivate the creativity through kind of my own body, seeking its own creative potential. I think compared to when I used to play cello and trumpet, I feel like I was always fighting against those instruments' kind of physical expectations of my body. And the organ feels very freeing and allows me to kind of, again, pursue kind of the own creativity of my disability, and has kind of expanded to me kind of singing with the organ and with lyrics I write for it, and also video and more communally engaged works. So if we can go to the next. So that was kind of an audio excerpt from a video titled The End. In that video, it was a collaboration with the visual artist Maya Smira at a residency in Shanghai. And I really wanted to kind of focus on what I consider kind of the end of physicality, if you will. And in my case, especially with acquiring a disability, asking what happens when physical sensation and movement leaves your body, which I feel I'll never kind of really tire of asking in the best way possible. And I can keep talking, I guess.
Sorry, Molly. We again are having. I think we think it's like the timer is just freezing up. So,
Molly, I'm going to chime in. I just dropped the upcoming premiere in the chat. If you want to talk a little bit about that happening in April.
Sure. So it's part of a fellowship I have with the Brooklyn-based venue National Sawdust and NYU Center for Ballet and the Arts. And I believe it's actually kind of the 4th collaboration with a frequent collaborator of mine, the disabled dancer Jerron Herman. And we kind of have an interesting body setup, if you will, in that we both have impaired left sides, yet through different sources, Jerron congenital and me acquired. So we often explore this kind of shared terrain in our works. And with this work, this is all Jerron's idea too, to explore kind of the myth of the left side as dirty or sinister. I believe left in Latin translates to sinister, and kind of looking through historical and mythical stories about that. And that was kind of the starting point. And of course, with this video work, we're always trying to incorporate accessibility more and more in our works. So we engaged an audio describer, Max Grayson, as kind of a core creative collaborator from the beginning. And also in collaboration with director Austin Regan to kind of tie it all together with the visual content. And we're also engaging an ASL interpreter, Brandon Kazan Maddox, as a core kind of contributor, if you will, too.
Molly, would you like to tell Nick which slide to start on?
Would it be all right to, or we can just start after the video, the first video? That's not very specific, I guess. Perfect. And just to add, my work has grown to be more communally engaged, so not just focusing on my body or that of a collaborator, but really having contributions from many disabled participants, particularly with this ongoing project titled Perspective, through which, at least the first iteration of this project, I asked 8 questions about concepts that I feel are really essential to the disabled experience overall. So I asked, what is access, care, control, weakness, and more to 18 participants across a range of disabilities and experiences. And on this slide, I have 4 black squares with white text at the top and bottom, including questions and answers to some of those concepts. And I believe the next video is just kind of an excerpt from one of those, kind of one of the sections. What is weakness for you?
Weakness, gosh, that's so loaded. Yeah, it's not a word I think about that much, and I wonder why. I think weakness is one of those words that I have trouble defining, insofar as it is often defined for me, and actually most people find weakness is defined for them by somebody outside, and that ends up becoming internalized.
Thanks, Molly.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here. My name is Cathy Lu, and I make ceramic sculptures and installations that revolve around Chinese American identity and understanding how experiences of immigration, cultural hybridity, and assimilation become part of larger American identity. So yeah, I'm excited to show you some of my work from the past few years. Next slide. Cool. All right. So this is a piece called The Treasure Case. And I like to show this work because it's one of the first times I began to think about cultural objects and what it means to authentically represent a culture. So this treasure case is actually a copy of a treasure case of Chinese ceramics in the Asian Art Museum in San Francisco. And their treasure case is actually a copy of a treasure case in the Forbidden Palace in China. So I just love the idea of like copies of copies and how that adds or takes away from ideas of authenticity. This is another piece of mine called Peach Garden. And it's loosely inspired by the Garden of Eden and the Immortal Peach Garden, which is a Chinese myth where the immortals would eat peaches and live forever. And I wanted to create my own version of that garden that was steamy and sweaty. And so I put humidifiers in each of them and made the peaches look really sort of transformed and mutated as a way to think about third culture spaces. This is another version of another peach, and peaches to me are also really interesting because they have such a large place in Chinese culture as symbols of longevity and prosperity, but then also this very American identity as well, as being a popular Southern fruit and even the state fruit of Georgia. So I love like putting those two ideas together, and then I have little fingers with long nails coming out of them as a way to talk about the ways I used to engage with like East Asian culture growing up in Miami. This is another version with fruits. I'm obsessed with fruits and thinking about how, you know, a lot of the fruits we consider to be super commonplace in the United States are actually, we're all actually pretty much foreign and non-native to the US. So this vase has bananas and bitter melon and mangoes and peaches and other things that I can't remember right now. And again, so here's some more fruits. This is a net made out of ceramic fruits as well. So thinking again about this idea of all these little different fruits coming from different geographies and different cultures, and sort of flattening the different values we put towards those cultures by creating a singular structure. And also the net as a object that's, you know, a safety net, but also an object that can entrap you as a way to think about immigrant communities' experience in the United States. So they're just metallic glazed with some gold luster. And this is a view from above. And this photo was taken in a gallery space in LA from 2019. More fruits. So this was inspired also by thinking about different creation myths or utopian garden stories. So this is my version of a sacred tree. The structure is made out of bamboo, which is really typical of the type of scaffolding that you used to see in Asia or East Asia and now in Hong Kong still. And each of the fruits are also slip cast and made off of fruits I purchased in Chinatown. And this is part of that same series of exploring like utopian, dystopian spaces, thinking about security fences as border objects and also as cultural symbols or cultural objects as a way to think about how, like more representative of how we think about immigration as opposed to the Statue of Liberty, just because they're everywhere. And these security fences, I made a whole series of them and they're made out of porcelain. This was next to the security fence. It's another example of what I consider a border object. It's basically just a porcelain drain with gold luster. And I went to Jin and worked with an artisan to fabricate these porcelain cockroaches. Again, thinking about the xenophobic language used to sort of dehumanize certain groups or immigrant groups in the United States. These are American cockroaches. And lastly, I have this work that I'm working on right now. These are ceramic pillows, inspired by ceramic pillows from the Tang and Song dynasty. And the idea with these pillows was that like the people who slept on them, they're supposed to basically like sort of inform your dreams and change your future outcomes. So these are my versions of those pillows as a way for people to rest on and thinking about ideas of like how to navigate the American dream. Thank you.
Thank you, Cathy. Next up, we have Yara, who is our current sound artist in residence. And Yara actually lives in Egypt. So she pre-recorded this video just to give everyone an idea since it's very early there right now. So I think we are ready. Thanks, Nick.
Super. So I'm gonna start. I am Yara Mikawi. I'm a sound artist and a multidisciplinary artist based in Cairo, Egypt. Thanks for inviting me for this little talk, and thanks for the center, Bemis Center, which I found really interesting to have this opportunity. Super. So I'm gonna start. I am Yara Mikawi. I'm a sound artist and a multidisciplinary artist based in Cairo, Egypt. Thanks for inviting me for this little talk, and thanks for the center, Bemis Center, which I found really interesting to have this opportunity to work with them, even if I'm not there in person. But it would be super nice if the situation are stable that we can go through the physical work. So actually, I'm a sound artist who are based in Cairo, and I use the sound as a tool. I get inspired from my city, Cairo, which is really noisy and messy city. And I do have this inspiration all the time from my my hard, my really crowded city. I started practicing the sound art since I think 15 years ago. And first I was doing some videos, and I found that it was really interesting to use my ear instead of seeing all the time. I believe that the sound waves and the ear that gives us some inputs give us the more opportunities and a more unlimited visuals to think, to create, and to imagine. So I started working with the sound of the people themselves. I was curious about how the language or making or creating and framing the sound wave really in a unique way. I was really inspired also by the urban design of each city. So I decided that each city I travel in, maybe in Egypt, in the upper south, in Africa, or in Europe, I do study the soundscape, the ambient sound of the cities. So we can just move through the images. Yeah, as I told you that get inspired from my city and this image from the revolution, the first revolution, 1952. I was not being there. I was not born yet, but I was recording. I was working on the old records of this revolution, which I found the power of the people by the soundtracks. During the journey of the sound, I was really fascinated by recording the human body sound and the body sound, which is basically the blood pressure and the blood circle in each body of us. This image I collaborate with a friend of mine from Ghana in Lagos Art Biennale, the first one 3 years ago, and it was live performance. This is one of the forums that I have been interesting to have the stage of transferring the sound into a visual side instead of transferring the sound on a visual. So here you can see the sound of Johannesburg. Through the journey of imagining the sound, I try to all the time listening to my records of each city, and I do illustrating the sound, which also another perspective to how see the sound, not only in a 3D dimension, but also in the 2 dimensions, that gives you the feelings and give you the multi images, how the sound original piece could be. Instead of imagine the sound in a visual piece, they're also connected to the body itself. Yeah, many times I do love to read and to write with my Arabic languages. It gives the work different perspective. So it was really interesting to talk in my home language and ask the audience if they have different visuals or they have different images and memories from the sound, which can also be described in the spectrum of the sound itself, the visual spectrum image of each sound piece, which in my language. There was really another nice phase of my work that I was recording the teeny sound of the plants, and I do amplifying it in a big speakers that you not only see the plants, which is really calm, but you listen to the noise of these calm objects. Not only the plants, but also with the fish. So I was recording the real fish in the sea and decided to put it inside in a different multidisciplinary images in my installation. Last but not least, I'm founder of radio online show since 3 years ago, Radio Submarine, which is aims to play music and sound from the whole African continent.
Thank you, everyone. We are going to do a 5-minute intermission. What we myself and Andy Garlock, who is our sound, art, and experimental music technician, are going to do a little information about our sound art residency, which is what Yara is doing right now. So we're going to show a few slides, but you can feel free to get up, turn your camera off, do all the things. Residency, you need to stretch, bio break, all that stuff. So yeah, we're going to do that. I think slides are coming. So the Sound Art and Experimental Music program began at Bemis in 2019. So during each session, we have a sound artist in residence. So Yara is our current one. Most recently, we had Leah Bertucci, whose music you heard at the beginning of the program. This is a Andrew W. Mellon Foundation funded residency. Thank you, Andrew W. Mellon Foundation. And we were able to start this residency and expand the visual art residency to include sound art and experimental musicians. So we specifically will have a slot for each of them. And this coming year, we actually have our first open call. The previous artists have been invited just to sort of get the program started. All of our residents, so including our regular air as well as our sound resident, have access to the sound studio. So you're seeing some really beautiful photographs of the sound studio when we had Juan Jose Rivas, who was our January 2020 resident. And so this is you have 24-hour access to this space. And Andy, who just joined us, can talk a little bit about what is available in this space for artists to use. So Andy, I'm going to let you jump in there if you want to unmute yourself.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, as Rachel mentioned, I'm Andy Garlock, the Sound Art and Experimental Music Program Technician, and we're looking through a few pictures here. Earlier, we saw a couple shots of the rehearsal space. Now we're looking into the sound studio, kind of the command center of the, I guess, the program. And so in this area here, we have our Midas 32 live mixing desk. We have Grandmother Moog synthesizer. We also have Nord 88 keyboard. We have some really nice Genelec monitors and a variety of digital audio workstations and synthesize other soft synths and all sorts of software and hardware to really help you kind of explore your creativity and take your practice to the new next level. We also have a variety of microphones for all sorts of things like live performance, ranging up to like really nice room kind of ambient microphones and some really nice vocal. We had just recently an alumni was doing an audiobook, so that was a nice experience too in the sound studio. And now we are looking forward to getting more people back in, not in the virtual scenario, and populating the studio and kind of getting more work made here. And just like the Artist in Residence program, the Sound Art program is kind of aimed at providing time and space for people. You know, you can come here, you can, like Rachel said, 24 hours. So if you're a morning person and you want to get down there and get to creating, or if you're like a midnight and beyond person, the basement is kind of far away from the live work studio. So you can go down there and be noisy and do your thing. So really whatever works best for your kind of workflow. And then we also have myself and Nick here to, with any technical questions you might have, we try to assist. And if it's not something that we immediately know, we will definitely dig into and kind of get our hands dirty with you and learn that with you, because that's kind of the fun of my job. So let me click to the next slide. Is there anything I missed there, Rachel?
No, I think you did great.
Low end, of course, the venue that I'm in now. So next to the studio, we also have a venue where we kind of is made to facilitate experimental music from its very conception. So even the stage is a little funky, asymmetric designed, and we have industry standard kind of sound system and amplifiers down here that we can also move throughout the building, because people also do like to do things on the 5th floor and some of the other spaces. But yeah, what else would you say about the venue that I missed there, Rachel?
Yeah, so Low End is our latest venture at Bemis. And obviously during the pandemic, we haven't been able to host any performances down there. We have been doing virtual performances. So I think I mentioned in the intro, our next one is with the duo Princess, which will happen on March 11th. This is an image of Laura Ortman, who actually basically inaugurated the space. She was our second performance that we had in the space in November of 2019. And so it was a venue that was created with UNL, University of Nebraska-Lincoln's FACT program, which is a design build program led by Jeff Day, as well as local artist, artisan extraordinaire Sean Ward, and some Bemis input. So this is, you know, a space that we have named Low End. We've had several residents perform down here, Leah Bertucci and Juan Jose Rivas, as well as we bring in experimental musicians and sound artists on a pretty regular basis, usually about twice a month, to do free performances. So we are very hopeful to get back to that maybe towards the end of this year. But it's sort of a new space for Omaha. Omaha is a very music heavy city. So we wanted to be able to create a space for sound artists and experimental musicians specifically. As we mentioned, the residency program will be going to an open call. The open call is up right now. And so we're going to do, Andy and I are going to do a Instagram live Q&A. So if people that are interested in applying want to learn more about the program and have questions, we'll be doing that on March 10th at 3:30. And I believe Juan Jose, who is one of our residents, is joining us, right? Is that correct, Andy?
Yeah, we're gonna have Juan Jose with us live. Which
he
is
can also answer questions for people and kind of get that started.
And Juan Jose, and you also mentioned Leah. Leah recorded an album here, and that's what we opened our program here with tonight, and it's called On Opposite Sides of Sleep, with off her new album, A Visible Length of Light. So
yes, and Juan Jose also did an album here, so we have the vinyl of that too. So
great.
Really a very productive residency for people. So
all right,
I'm going to turn it over to Narcissister now. Hopefully everybody has gotten their stretch in and continue on with presentations. So thank you, everyone.
Hi. Thank you everyone for your wonderful presentation so far, and thank you for this opportunity to be part of this residency, and also for everyone handling the technical behind the scenes on this. Starting in 2007, I concentrated all my creative energies in this performance project called Narcissister. I found that by combining my history as a professional dancer and my work as a commercial artist together with my longstanding visual art practice, could I then create something that was compelling to myself and hopefully to others. So I am the primary embodiment of this character, Narcissister, and in her name, I do live performance, I make art videos and films, collages, sculptures, and I compose noise music. Narcissister's identity is defined by this plastic mask. It's a repurposed wig display form available in 3 different skin tones that was designed by female entrepreneur Verna Doran and her company Plasti Personalities in Los Angeles in the 60s. Both Narcissister's name and the mask, reflect the double dynamic I aim to create with the work. The mask falls within the narrow conception of femininity and beauty currently predominant in the culture. The mask draws the viewer in. Simultaneously, the mask, a tool for acquiring and establishing superiority and separation, pushes the viewer away. Similarly, the name Narcissister, while evoking the dysfunction of narcissism, also connotes through humorous punning both sisterhood and concerns beyond self. My ultimate aim with this project is to complicate and deconstruct stereotypical representations, namely to investigate the conceptions that are embodied in the collective cultural psyche around women's bodies, which support or prohibit a woman's freedom. So let's look at some slides of my work. I started recently making participatory sculptures, which are sculptures that are completed by the participation of a human being. So I perform in these sculptures myself, and I engage other narcissisters to join me. So this is a totem from 2018, and we have a detail on the next slide. Thank you. This was at Participant Gallery in New York City. And the next slide shows another participatory sculpture. This is called The Face, Performing Male Facial Features. So the performer mounts the sculpture, and she activates his features. So she uses her hands to open and close his eyes, her feet open and close the mouth, and she's wearing his nose as a backpack and his mustache as leggings on her legs. Next slide. Of particular interest is how the meaning of the sculpture changes depending on the race of the performer. I created this piece during a residency at ARTPace in San Antonio in the summer of 2019. The next. Thank you. So all of the participatory sculptures that I make emerge from collage studies. So this is one of the studies. It is of a totem. It's on a Donald Judd sculpture. And of particular interest to me is the canon, the minimalist sculpture canon, and subverting that canon and changing the meaning, updating the meaning of those works by adding women to them. So we have another sculpture that we'll look at next. You can change the slide. Okay, well, that's fine.
Don't know why that keeps happening, but
no worries at all. It was just that was a study for another participatory sculpture that involved performers standing atop my version of a minimalist cube. And the last thing I was going to talk about is that I also make film works, and I made a feature film about my complex family history and how that history, in particular my relationship with my mother, compelled me to create this Narcissister character and to do the things that I do as Narcissister, and that's called Narcissister Organ Player, and that premiered at Sundance in 2018. And then I made an activist short film called Narcissister Breastwork that explores the legality of bare-breastedness for women in the streets of New York City. And that premiered at Sundance 2020. So thank you so much. It's really an honor to be here with you all. I look forward to meeting everyone in person.
Thank you so much. Again, we're really sorry about all these.
Claps to you. Don't worry about the technical issues, really.
This is our life right now, unfortunately. Okay, looks like, do you want to just talk briefly, really quickly about the last two slides, and then we can move on to the next person. I know you just mentioned them.
Oh,
we'll just do a little quick overview in 1 second when we get there.
Okay, sure. So this is my version of the minimalist sculpture, which is compressed recycled aluminum can cubes that I found at a metal recycling center in San Antonio, and posited what it means, how the meaning of these minimalist works are updated by the addition of performers. So again, this is in San Antonio at ARTPace in 2019, and I think we have another one. Performer compressed within the minimalist cube sculpture. And then the next slide. This is a still from Narcissister Breastwork, again, exploring the legality of bare-breastedness for women in the streets of New York. And the next, This is a still from Narcissister Organ Player, which is the feature film about my complex family history and about my work. Thank you so much. This is a still also from our Narcissister Organ Player with animation collaboration with Martha Colburn. Thanks again. Appreciate it.
Hi. I've had a lot of procedures done a couple weeks ago, so a little self-conscious and still in recovery. So apologies if I'm speaking a little bit slowly. We can start for next slide. So in the summer of 2017, I underwent an orchiectomy. Following this gender-affirming procedure, I had vivid dreams of testicles sprouting shoots and roots, later to find they were buried in a landfill on the island of Shikoku, I believe 303 kilometers away from my hometown of Nagoya. Around this time, I began to experience a dissolution of the self, the ego. Much like Daphne turning into a laurel tree, or cyan dissolving into the river, or Ophelia, wrought with madness falling from the willow tree. This was during my first year of graduate school. This queer spirit is resilient, though. With my wonderful partner, Pete, in collaboration, we explored various ways by which to come in contact with our inner gremlins, hosting workshops for people to come in contact with the child aspect within themselves that likes to wreak havoc. This was inspired by my time in play therapy, and it basically meant that my practice, I became a glorified potato head maker because I was fascinated by the modularity of my body and that of Mr. Potato Head, or Mrs. Potato Head, or Ms. Potato Head. This allowed me to work through my own understanding of race, gender, sexuality, to delicately hold various iterations of my parents, the versions of myself I could not accept back then. So to have my masculine father in the palm of my hands, locally foraged plants and produce forgotten in the fridge are coated in graphite and plated in copper through a technique called electroforming. These little figures were given little bits of armor, turned into artificial seed pods, a time capsule to open up at a later date. Left to right, a self-portrait of myself pregnant. The thighs are sick and swollen. I've had sex reassignment surgery. In the middle, a childhood memory of my father on a business call. His nipples are chafed and red. And on the right-hand side, an example of a copper-plated piece. Inspired by Shintoism and the role of Umico. In this light, personal struggles with mental illness, neurosis, hallucinations, and bouts of hysteria can be viewed as shamanistic sickness and a connection to the earth. Under the scope of empiricism, though, the role of Umico is fading in our modern life. Much like the Entwives of Middle Earth, or fighter jet gremlins of World War II, or nursery changelings in hospitals, and folkloric tricksters. During this time in quarantine, I realized that I'm further trapped within a lonely state of individualism. The dissolution of the self no longer seems daunting, and I'm excited to meet everyone in person and picnic at the end.
Hello? Can you hear me? Okay. Hi, my name is Jezabeth Roca Gonzalez, or Jezabeth Roca Gonzalez. I just wanted to say I'm really happy and excited and lucky to be in this group, and then just to learn about everyone's work, and I don't know. So thank you so much. We can go to my first image. I am a multidisciplinary speaker, working with photo, video, performance, land transport, which is a word that I use for land migration, and live plants, which have also been migrated from Puerto Rico to the US. And I work in an installation form. I guess I'm based in Puerto Rico and the US with this constant back and forth. My work focuses on my hometown and my family, our relationship through the scope of my migration. And my hometown is known as the place where the gods died and the birth of Puerto Ricanness, and the sort of like, what does that mean? And, you know, how do we carry that in and out of the island? And like, how do we process that at all? You can go to the next image. Thank you. I see my practice as an extension of the territory, much like myself, and not really a separation. So land can be used as a form of like navigating a relationship, or it can be also used as like a self-portrait. And also it keeps me really connected to my home, and creates a collaborative process between myself and my family. Next. My practice allows me to create multiple realms where I can explore self-displacement, power dynamics, family dynamics, economic austerity, like stationary forms, because my family has stayed in Puerto Rico, and because I have left, then this constant movement and shifting back and forth. And this also allows me to explore like ideas of pleasure and exhaustion. I am interested in the landscape and kind of just, again, exhausting also my materials as much as I can. You can go to the next image. I'm also interested in fabricated landscapes and tropical utopias, and to whom and where do those belong? So through my own construction. So for example, these plantains are on their third generation of like plants, and I migrated them from Puerto Rico, and they have been living or planted in containers and never touching American soil. So I'm really interested in the idea of like movement and community and like how that's represented. And also I'm interested in the everyday in terms with my family and me, and how that intersects with, I guess, local and US dynamics and power. And I have a video that will show that side too.
This is a great spacious living area, which includes a living room, sitting area, a beautiful dining table. It has sub-zero appliances. So the kitchen has a breakfast area, and then it connects to the family room. This could be turned into a fourth bedroom if someone has an amazing view from the master bedroom. You have the ocean, you see the cruise ships at night, you see the lagoon, which light up beautifully, you see the planes flying out to Culebra, you see the convention center, and you see the marina from here. At night, it's also beautiful. Sometimes clients say, I want all ocean view, but I remind them that at night, it's gonna be dark. This is the
Hi, everyone. Wait. Can you see me?
Yes, we can. You're good. Well.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I want to thank everyone for being here. So I'm just going to read something as we go through the slides. My name is Latrelle Maria Rostant, and I work primarily in textiles and fiber with a focus on weaving. This evening, I'm showing a fabric collage installation, woven dimensional objects, and the development of a new tool for weaving. During this brief talk, I will be speaking to how I came to develop the tool I use for making my woven objects. This work began with two questions I was asking myself. The first question was how my understanding of the carnival culture of Trinidad and Tobago, the country where I was born, could influence my approach to making and how I understood approach making and how I understood culture. The second question was directed to the frustration I had around my process of weaving at the time. The weaving tool I used did not fully facilitate how I wanted to make. As I pushed against this fixed nature of the tool and repeated making on it with the absence of color allowed me to focus on how I was using the tool. Eventually, I came to the understanding that in order to make as I wanted, I had to make a tool for weaving, a new tool for weaving. This approach to making ties how I understand carnival. Carnival expands and contracts to make a third space where those who are present are able to take what they know and combine it with what they encounter in the space and make objects and performances that reflect this new temporary space they occupy. The modular loom I use allow me to take up space in various ways. I can move, add, and take away parts as I weave upon it. This process allows me to look at the expectations of culture, question what happens when one becomes a tourist of one's own culture, and how that culture is understood, experienced, and performed within versus how it's understood through the gaze of those who are next to it, but outside. While at Bemis, I am focused on broadening the techniques I used on the modular loom, while also looking to clarify how I understand the woven objects I make on this tool that has to be disassembled to free the woven objects made upon it. So what you're seeing right now is just sort of another iteration of my modular loom that I've been working on. And in this time during the pandemic, I haven't had as much space as I would have in a normal situation. So I've been had to work on this very collapsed version of this tool to develop and sort of look at what is, what happens in sort of this changing space. And it sort of have led me to sort of make these, what I call more expansion of technique of what has been going on in terms of these woven objects that this tool has allowed me to make. And I find that I'm sort of just trying, as I make these new objects, these woven objects, I'm trying to figure out what they are and how they hold space in relations to a tool that no longer exist in the form that it existed while they were made. So yeah, thank you. That's it. And I have like 2 or 3 more slides, I think.
Hi. I had no idea I was next. My name is Gioncarlo Valentine. I'm a photographer and a writer living in New York. I'm from Baltimore, Maryland. I'm not going to talk against the work really. So Nick, if you want to just kind of go for 30 seconds per image, that'd be great. So my photographs are mostly these days, I understand them to be about, upkeeping a legacy. I've had a great privilege of being, a student to a lot of the legendary photographers that I idolized through their books and through like personal relationship with them. And, I'm not really interested in doing something brand new, being the most creative photographer in the world. I'm really interested in keeping the legacy of the Black archivist alive, the Black griot. So much of African-American history has been stripped from us so consistently. Archives of major publications like Ebony and Essence and, many different platforms, Life magazine, it becomes Vibe, so many different places in which Black identity in this country, that was a little quick. Black identity in this country has kind of built itself up, has been like destroyed and has been lost in so many different ways. So a lot of my practice is about archiving. A lot of my gaze is towards my community, the LGBTQ community. I focus a lot on Black trans women, the most vulnerable population in the Black community. That is really it. I'm also a writer. A lot of my writing is about personal narratives. I'm working on a feature film script currently, and for a studio. And I was gonna like talk a lot about the kind of work that I was making pre-COVID. I'm much more interested in the struggle that I'm having these days, where now I've experienced a lot of commercial work. So I've been working commercially during this time. If I was at Bemis, I would be, in a studio, I'd be archiving, I'd be doing, work on my hard drives and scanning the 800,000 film negatives and, trying to organize myself. And I probably wouldn't even be making, I would probably be archiving and writing. But because I did stay in New York, I've had to work. And I've had the great privilege to be able to work during this time. But, I do have a personal artistic photographic practice, and I do have a professional photographic practice. And I'm struggling these days mostly with how you can't really nurture one without the other. And that's kind of where I am now. I love the concept of photographing famous Black people with the same energy, the same intention, the same view that I photograph people at the corner store in Harlem, because I don't think that there's a difference. And I try to make sure that my work feels that way. Yeah, and I think that that's just where I am with my work at the moment. My writing everything is slowing down a great deal because of the pandemic. But work as a photographer has amped up so much, and it makes me feel like I can't nurture what matters most, which is my personal work. So I'm really that's where my brain is. Anytime that I try to talk about my work, I get lost in the conversation between what's most important. How do you stay afloat in a city like New York? How do you remain relevant? How do you continue to have an ethic as a photographer, but also like survive? Yeah, I think that's all I have to say. I guess I could talk about the photos. This is my younger brother, Samaj. I'm doing a story on him. I've been documenting him his entire life. So I've just been making images of him since he was born. And I plan to until he's about 18, and then I'll organize that work into something. This is Maxine Hong Kingston, photographed for the New Yorker. Treasure, a literary powerhouse. Okay. This is from my project, Soft Fence. I did a exhibition of the work at the Blue Sky Gallery in Oregon. And it's about safe spaces within toxic heterosexual cisgendered spaces. Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with such amazing artists. I really look forward to meeting you in person in the not so far future. What I'm going to be talking about today is the exhibition I'm working on for Bemis opening in December. That project is part of a larger project on what I call the currencies of hospitality. And recently, I just guest edited a special issue of a journal called Public. And that looks into these questions from an interdisciplinary perspective. It's a collaboration with 17 artists and scholars and theorists, and it's a beast. It's 320 pages. If you have a chance to look at it, I would invite you to do so. And this research into the currencies of hospitality led to the two previous shows that I did at Bemis, but I'll start with this one. It's currently called tentatively Entangled Bodies, Stealth Hospitality. And it's a show that I've structured as an episodic project over many years. So it will start at Bemis. It will have a second manifestation as an exhibition in Buffalo at the end of 2022. And a third episode will be a publication. Succinctly, the exhibition is trying to understand the relationship between a philosophical concept, which is hospitality, and the body. And basically saying, how is this concept historically inflected what we think the body is and how we think it can and does operate on many, many levels. Hospitality is usually considered a philosophical concept with legal or juridical implications, an ethical concern, or a social political practice. This exhibition shifts the focus to consider the stealth work of hospitality on our conceptual, physical, and political understanding of bodies in order to emancipate ideas, language, images, and performances. And so I'm showing you a series of images, which are for me research images. So these are artists whose work right now is helping me sort of develop this exhibition. They may or may not be in the show, and these may not be, probably will not be the work. So it's very much sort of a thinking with concepts, words, but also the work of people that is happening right now. So the first slide that we saw is from an artist from Finland. Her name is Jenna Sutela, and it's a piece called The Holobiont. And she's basically looking at the very material connection between outer space and our guts. So for example, space dust falls on Earth all the time. It's in everything that we do. We often think as these things as being quite separate, but actually space is in our gut through bacteria and so on. What you see here is a piece by Adam Faramaway, who's an artist based in London, originally from Egypt via Dubai, and it's a piece called Skin Flick, which operates either as a single channel piece or in this case, a 3-channel video installation. Repurposed furniture and plants and mushroom growing on the piece during the exhibition. And it's really about the connection between humans and plants in a very expanded way. We'll go to the next one. Bridget Moser. Can we go to the next slide?
I think he's going to have to restart.
Okay.
So continue.
Okay, so while we do that, I think the question is, I mean, this project started with a simple question. I'm an art historian and a philosopher by training. And so the question was, what is the first artist, the first artwork depicting a transplant? Because if you think of hospitality in the body, transfusion and transplantation are kind of one way in. And in looking for that very simple question, I realized that the first depiction of an artist or of a transplant was in the 13th century in Italy in paintings. And it's the depiction of a medical miracle, whereby two twins, and that's very important, twins from Syria come, so it's, sorry, make a miracle in the dream. And the miracle goes something like this. You have this white guy who is dying of cancer of gangrene. And the saints come to him in a dream, or come to him in a dream, and they say, oh, well, just today, this Ethiopian man was buried in the cemetery nearby. Let's go and basically harvest his leg, and we will save this white man. So the very notion from the onset, the relationship between bodies being framed, and this is 600 years before we can even make a transplant, frame in this extractive, racialized way whereby we can just swap body parts. So that was like when I was really blown away and said, I need to do this project and dig deeper. And so in the research, I've looked at medical history, of course, political history, economic history, and trying to understand all of these things together. So we're back to the images. So this is a performance by Bridget Moser. The piece is called My Crops Are Dying, But My Body Persists. And as you see, she is kind of wearing an anatomical suit. Christina Corliss, the next slide, from LA, wonderful paintings. The next slide, Oliver Hussein and Kristen Schrodinger, who are working out of Toronto and Berlin. It's a still from a piece called DNCB, which was a substance that was used in the early days of AIDS to alleviate the sort of pain, the topical pain, so pain on skin, and a highly toxic substance that is used in film also to create the color yellow. So they're working now with turmeric as a kind of alternative for that yellow in their work. Sorry, this is Megan Rooney. So we're an artist from Toronto based in London, working in sculpture and painting. So getting much more abstract here and trying to really understand the body beyond this sort of extended body. The next slide, because I'm running out of time, Marguerite Humeau. This is a show that she had a new museum called the Birth Canal. And if you look at the sculpture on the left, it's called the Queen of Leopards. A 150 years old woman, a female human, has ingested a manatee's brain. So the sort of human, non-human relationship, but here framed in terms of cannibalism, which I think is really important, and it's one thread in the research. And the next slide is Jean-Charles de Quillac, a French artist, working very much on the periphery of the body through often attire, clothing, sort of mapping it out from that outside. Next is Rodney McMillian from Los Angeles. The work on the right is called Cell Number 1. And if you look at the work on the, the work on the right, work on the left is Cell Number 1. Work on the right is Mississippi Appendectomy from 2020. So looking at the history of medicine in the US and its treatment of African Americans from the onset, and so linking directly to this history, of the first transplant. And here is a piece by Munir Fatmi. He's integrating two things. One is one of these earliest depictions of the miracle of the black leg by Fra Angelico, and layering that over with a black and white photograph of a space where surgery is performed today, working in black and white again to sort of emphasize the legacy of that, of those ideas. So that's what I'm working with.
Sylvie, do you want to talk for a second about the hospitality of images?
Sure, yes. So this is, this journal came out, and to activate or to kind of extend those ideas from the page into a broader discourse, I've developed a launch program that includes 4 different sessions. The first one is March 4th, and bringing together 3 artists who have participated in the project: Besat Khosravi Nouri, who's from Iran but living in Stockholm; David Petros, who's from Eritrea originally, living between Montreal and Chicago; and Felipe Steinberg, who's Bemis alumni living in Sao Paulo. And so they will talk about this precisely what the title says, the ways in which images can enact hospitality. And they're looking at cinema, animation, and photography. There are 3 other sessions. One is around architecture, one is around curating, and one is around performance. So please join us. They're awesome.
Yeah, we're super excited to host this panel next Thursday at noon Central Time. So please sign up. And obviously, to get any of our information, you can visit our website, all of our social media channels. But yeah, big thank you to everybody for presenting tonight. Again, sorry about all the technical issues, but I think we did it. Here again are all the names. Thanks, Holly, for putting everyone's info in the chat. So please follow people. Thank you to our sponsors, of which we are eternally grateful for your support in making this possible for us to continue after 40 years, continue on for another 400 years to the future. Don't forget about our upcoming programs. Sylvia's program that we just mentioned, the sound art and experimental music Q&A with Juan Jose Rivas, myself and Andy. Again, here are our open call deadlines. So Artist-in-Residence programs, experimental music, sound art program, Curator-in-Residence, and then we'll have the fall 2022, as well as our alumni Artist-in-Residence program is due in August. So thank you, everyone. We hope to see you soon in person, soon virtually, however it comes to be. And yeah, thank you again for joining us. So have a wonderful evening, everyone.
Thank you all. Thanks so much.
Bye.